The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to today's Monday morning helpline session with your host, James McDonald.
Well, thank you very much, Andrea, and I'd like to start by welcoming our participants to our Monday morning free-for-all. This is our helpline session, and that means that we can talk about anything you like. So I want to especially welcome our brand new coaching students who are participating on the helpline session for the very first time from Toronto. We had a great group, and we started the program last week. So this is the very first Monday morning helpline. Now, let me just explain a couple things here. First of all, over the course of the weekend, you might have some questions, and you can jot those down and save them up for the Monday morning helpline session. That's a really good idea. But here's what we also find is that when you start the week off by coming on the helpline session, it kind of puts you in Craig Proctor mode for the week. Whereas if you don't, it's really easy to kind of fall back into running around, working in your business, and really not making those small incremental gains and changes in your business, which are so critical. It's not that you have to do anything huge and overwhelming. It's the small incremental implementations that you put in place. And what we find is this: when you wake up on a Monday morning and you make plans to be on the helpline session, you spend an hour on the session getting your questions answered, listening to everybody else's questions as well, hearing our discussions regarding the system. What it does is it puts your brain back in Craig Proctor mode so that when you get off the helpline session, you start your week now in Craig Proctor mode, and your actions will reflect your thoughts, and your thoughts are clearly going to be Craig Proctor. So it works, and this is how we've done it for many, many, many years for that very reason. So I'm saying that to really encourage you to come on these live. And I know that, for a lot of you, as I mentioned, it's your first helpline session, so you've made an effort to be here. It will pay dividends if you make an effort every Monday morning to be on the helpline session. Now, we can discuss anything you want, any element of the system whatsoever. If you bring it up, we will happily discuss it with you to make sure it's crystal clear and that you're getting all the help that you need. But I do want to point this out. As you know, every Thursday we do our role-playing session. In other words, anything to do with the universal callback script, we focus an entire webinar every week just on that topic because it is so vital to your success with the system. That doesn't mean we can't discuss it today. We will. As I said, it's a free-for-all. On Monday mornings, anything you want to discuss, we will discuss. But I also want you to know that there are certain elements of the system that are so critical that we designate an individual webinar each week just for those things. And as you know, on Fridays, we do our ad clinic session. It's a marketing session, really. And one of the many things that we do on the marketing session is we will look at your marketing efforts and critique them so that everybody can see what everyone else is doing that is working successfully, and where something might be falling down, point out why and how to fix it. And again, all of you will learn a great deal from that. So Thursdays we focus on lead conversion, Fridays we focus on lead generation, but on Mondays we can focus on those things as well. So don't be shy if you have questions regarding those things. Perhaps you generated some leads over the weekend and you want to talk about the process moving forward from there. The sky's the limit. We're more than happy to make sure that everything is crystal clear for you. We're hoping that by now you've at least set up your one-on-one consultation with your private one-on-one coach. Some of you I know, and speaking with you, have had your one-on-one consultation, which is excellent. That makes you feel really good about your plan and your course of action moving forward here. But at very least, you should have it scheduled so that you can prepare for that. Ensure your business profile is completed so your coach knows everything there is to know about you and your business and your marketplace, etc. So we're super excited here. As you can tell, I've had a cup of coffee. And Craig has joined me as well. Craig, welcome to our very first helpline session with our new coaching group from Toronto.
Yes, well, the conference was in Toronto, but not all the members were from Toronto, James, as you know. We had a lot of members from Quebec and from New York State and from other places as well. So we're going to go over to Andrea now. Andrea is going to take your questions, so don't be shy about this. You can ask your questions in two ways. You can type your question into the chat box, or you can ask an audio question by raising your hands. So Andrea, do we have any questions to start with?
We do. Our first from Nick and Joe. They're trying to find the role play session that we held last week. Now, some of our members may not have access to that yet because you did not join the role play session. But for those who are members, what you do, and for any recorded sessions, also the orientation sessions, you go to the library, the webinar library, and then you can watch or download any of our recorded sessions that you have access to.
All right, the next question is from Claudia. And the question is, I want to use your home sold at 100% of your asking price, or I'll pay you the difference as my unique selling proposition. Could you please give me the guidelines of how to price the home? Well, look, what is the house worth, right? What you're guaranteeing here is you're going to sell their home for 100% of what it's worth, right? What it's worth is what homes sell for. So, James, if I was looking at your house and your house is worth $800,000, then that's what I would list your home at. I would list your home at $800,000, and I guarantee to get James exactly what it's worth, or I'll pay the difference. Now, you have to decide how much of that difference would be the maximum amount that you would contribute. Okay, so obviously you don't want to contribute more than your listing fee, more than what you would make. You don't have to contribute even that much. It could be a maximum of $5,000. So you're going to create your rules, but your question was, well, what price are we basing this on? We're basing it on what the house is worth, market value. And that's why they call it market value. That's what homes sell for.
Yeah, this is where, Craig, as we get further into the guaranteed sale program, or as you start implementing it, really the only place you can get in trouble with the guaranteed sale program is in pricing the property, which is why you know, Craig, you always talk about how this is your program and you get to determine, what properties you even guarantee. So if you come across a property that's difficult to establish market value on, the program still benefits that seller, but you're just not going to directly offer a guarantee on their particular property, simply because if you can't accurately establish market value, you're gambling. And the program is not designed to gamble. It's a guarantee.
Well, let's look at why the program, what is the program designed to do? All these USPs are designed to get strangers who want to sell their home to call you. That's the design of the program. So, James, let's say that I run this ad that Claudia wants to run. I run this USP. It says, your home sold for 100% of asking price, or I'll pay you the difference. And you are going to use one of your best friends in real estate. Okay, all things equal, that's who you're going to use. But you happen upon my ad, and you're curious. Maybe you're even like super skeptical. But you have to call me just to satisfy your skepticism. So you call me. I come over to your house. So now I'm sitting at your kitchen table. You want to sell your home, and I'm in the business of helping people like you. I'm a real estate agent. Had I not run the ad, would it be safe to say you just would have used your best friend and I would not be sitting at your kitchen table?
Right.
Okay, so I say, James, I believe market value is $800,000. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, yes, great. Well, then it's very easy, because I say I'm going to list your home for $800,000, and if I don't sell your home for at least $800,000, I will pay you the difference up to X amount. It might be $5,000, it might be $10,000. You can decide. It might be $1,000. It's your program. You decide. At this point, though, can't we all argue that the ad has done its job? I'm sitting face-to-face with a total stranger that otherwise wouldn't have contacted me.
Well, and maybe you could even go a step further than that and say that my perception of my friend, who happens to be a realtor, is that they're my friend. And first and foremost, I perceive them as being my friend, not as an expert realtor. then you come in and I've talked to you solely based on the benefit of your program. In other words, all I know about you is that you offer this guarantee that I don't see any other realtors making, including my friend. Now you sit down at my kitchen table and you're taking me through this presentation and explaining all of these unique programs that you offer. Now all of a sudden I'm scratching my head thinking, well, my friend is a buddy of mine and I was hoping he could do me a favor, but right now I'm sitting with an expert who clearly isn't the same as all of the other realtors. And, you know, it seems apparent that this realtor is going to get me a lot more money for my property. But your point is very well made, which is, what is the purpose of an ad? It's not to get a listing. It's to identify a prospect. That's all it does, and it does it very, very well. So this is something that we will get into in great depth when we talk about your the various USPs.
Now, if you didn't agree with my assessment of price, so I say, James, I believe
yeah,
your
no,
home
I don't
is
agree.
worth 800,000.
I think I wanted to try closer to 900.
Okay, so I can decide based on James's motivation whether I want to still list his house, just the traditional way without the guarantee. I would say, James, at $900,000, unfortunately, I can't give you the guarantee, but I could list it the traditional way, and we just list your home at $900,000. Because that's all his friend's going to do for him.
Right.
But I've got an opportunity to get the listing where when I didn't run the ad, this guy never would have called me. Okay, Jack Deep is saying the problem is getting people to make appointments. Well, yes, this is where you're going to have to become skilled. Most of you are not very good at compelling the prospects to want to meet with you. This is why every Thursday we focus on this. James, anything you want to add on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I began the webinar by talking about exactly that, is that it is so critical that we designate an entire webinar every single week just to get better at converting leads to appointments, reaching them, what we say, what we do. It's critical. I mean, you are just generating leads. If you don't have the skills to convert leads, all you're doing is you're collecting leads, and that becomes pretty pointless after a while. How about this? If you're really, really good with lead conversion, you don't need to spend a lot of time and money generating a lot of leads in the first place because you're really good with what you have. So everything becomes more efficient the better you are with lead conversion. So you say the problem is, but honestly, this isn't a problem. It's just going to take a little bit of time and study for you to become really, really good with lead conversion. And then making appointments is a no-brainer, especially if we're talking
plus,
about
James,
sellers.
you're not going to convert them all. You know, like if you were to go out to a listing appointment tonight and the seller didn't list their home with you, would that cause you to stop trying to get listings? Of course not. This is why we've said since the beginning that our system is designed to generate lots of leads, because you're not going to convert them all. But you're not going to stop trying. So that's the idea. We need to generate lots of leads. Not all of them are going to be open to meeting with you. We're going to show you how to become more skilled at that. And we want to give you the luxury of choice. The harder the prospect fights you, it tells me the more I don't want them anyway. Let's have a look at the next question. This is from Mark. I have a listing going online this Friday. Where do I find the system or steps once I put the home on MLS? Okay, so what you're talking about is creating an activity plan. Well, you could model after mine, Mark, or you could just create your own. It's pretty easy to do this, right? All you're going to do is sit down with yourself and say, in a perfect world, what should happen every time I list a home? So that's exactly what I did. Well, what needs to happen? Well, we need to do the paperwork. We need to broker load it onto MLS. That needs to happen within probably 48 hours, right? Maybe 24, depending on where you operate. By the way, I would take my time, the maximum amount of time I had to broker load it on MLS, because I'm trying to double end it before I want to share that info with other realtors. The sign needs to be installed, for sale sign on the property. We need to take pictures of the home, get the key cut, install the lockbox, deliver the feature sheets. We need to get information on this property onto all my websites, maybe we're going to run an ad in the paper. We're going to call and welcome this customer and call them every single week and give them feedback on what we're doing to market and advertise the home and how many showings they've had every week. So that's going to be a recurring activity. At the 30-day mark, we're going to send out a letter saying your home has now been on the market for 30 days. It hasn't sold. Could you please give me a call so we could discuss next steps, which is a great way of getting them to call you so you can talk about a price reduction. So all of you are capable of, you know, in a perfect world, understanding what should happen on your listings. So we just want to make sure that that is what happens 100% of the time. And that's why we need an activity plan. Without an activity plan, even though you, the person, the realtor, knows what should happen, it doesn't always happen. So the computer, your contact management system, is going to tell you exactly what should be done in the right order over and over and over again. Andrea, do you know where my activity plan is for my the listing activity plan?
I believe I can find it in the file library. I'm going to look for it right now.
Okay, let's see if we can pull that up. But the point is you don't have to be enslaved by mine. All of you, or most of you anyway, have been in real estate for long enough to know what should happen in a perfect world when you list a home. So I knew it. I knew it for years what should happen. But it didn't always happen because I'm human and I forget. And I guess, you know, James, when I had 1 or 2 listings, it was easy to remember when you've got 1 or 2 sellers what should happen. But, you know, you start to get 10 or 20 or 30 listings, it's very easy for things to slip between the cracks. All right, so Andrea will keep looking for that. You may have to email Adrian and find out where that's at. But all the steps should be there.
And it's not the agent office action plans.
Yes, it would be under agent office.
Okay, let's download this and see what we get.
Okay, it could be on one of our. It could be on one of the seller coaching calls. Okay, so that's right there. So, okay, there's a buyer plan. See if you can find a seller plan. Sold conditional plan, listing plan. That's it right there. Okay, so show everybody where to find that. Now look at this, day 0. Oops. Okay.
Sorry about that. I was going to show everybody real quick. The library, and then file library, and then I just searched action.
Okay, and here it is. Okay, so let's look at what I'm doing on day 0. Okay, order the sign up. Okay, then we're going to create a file folder. This is a paper backup file folder that we were required to have with the address of the property, price, expiry date. Now you'll notice this was assigned by my listing coordinator. So this was Cindy. It had nothing to do with me. In fact, if you take a look at all these activities, do we see my name on? Let's scroll down. Where's my name? You won't find my name on any of this stuff. So all of these things happened. Where's Craig's name?
Just
right there. There's one. Okay, day 33. That's the first time I'm involved, and that's to get a price reduction if it hasn't sold. Okay, day 60. So 30 days later, it still hasn't sold. We're getting another price reduction. So all of these, whatever, 100+ things happened, but without me. And in a perfect world, eventually, that's where you guys want to get at, right? Is you have a real business. It doesn't depend on you. But if you scroll back to the top, look at all the stuff that's happening just on day 0, like right when we list the house, or day 1. All these things are happening without me. Okay, so let me just read these off. Order the sign, create the file.
One thing you do on day 1. One thing you do on day 1 is give them a quick call and thank them.
Okay, so write the address, load onto Treb, load into the contact management system, give the listing to the downstairs office, install the lockbox, take the photo, listing in the black book. This is a little system we had to keep track. I had this little black book with all of our listings. Create, anyway, it goes on and on and on. Okay, attention new listing. So this goes out to all my inside and outside sales agents. Remember, the first thing I want to do is I want to double in my listings. So before I load it onto Treb, I want to make sure, that's the Toronto Real Estate Board, I want to make sure that, you know, maybe we can sell it ourselves. So how many times, if you have a team, has that happened where you broker loaded onto the MLS, but one of your own agents could have sold the property. So let's give our team members an opportunity to sell the property. So anyway, you can find what you're looking for there, Mark, and you can model after that. But I don't want you to be enslaved by my listing plan. I want you to create your listing plan, right? But you might get some good ideas from mine. Okay, Jane Hislop is asking the next question, James. If you have no listings yourself, can you still advertise on Kijiji or Craigslist? So you can borrow listings, right?
Yeah.
But why don't you talk about how Jane can do this?
You'd have to borrow listings. Here's the deal with both of those websites is that they're very strict about this, and your account will be flagged and removed. You need to advertise a property for sale. That doesn't mean that you can't make a universal offer. You cannot use a live link, but you can advertise your 1-800 number, all right, to get information, which is why the upside of Kijiji and Craigslist is they're very inexpensive or free, depending on what you do. The downside is the way to make it work is you've got to post a lot of ads, which is time consuming. So free is good, time consuming isn't good. That's sort of the balance. What you got to do is create ads that promote a property for sale and then make a universal offer in the ad. Now, Kijiji's a little bit better than Craigslist for that. They're a little more open. They have more options available. You can pay for a live link so prospects can click to respond to a universal offer. But Craigslist, you cannot do that at all. You need to have an individual property listing. Now, then that invents a new problem, which is you cannot run the same identical ad over.
All right, we lost you. You're going in and out there, James.
I am?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay. What you want to do is you want to create different ads. As long as the ads are different, you can run an unlimited number of them. But if it's the same, you can't do that. You can't just spam the system over and over and over again. You need to wait, 48, 72 hours. It varies to run the ads, which is why, as we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about, Craigslist and Kijiji represent a supplement to your lead generation system. They are not your lead generation system. They're a supplement to it. I would much rather you be running ads using Google pay-per-click or Facebook ads. They'll generate you much more consistent, meaningful leads than will Craigslist, for example, and be a lot less time consuming as well. So bear that in mind. But certainly, yes, we can make it work.
Okay, Bridget's asking this. She says, if the house is worth $800,000, this is the example I said it a minute ago. If the house is worth $800,000, wouldn't you ask more so you could get $800,000 or more? Well, if the offer I'm making to James is I guarantee to get you 100% of your asking price, and we agree his house is worth $800,000, I would be guaranteeing to get him more than what the house is worth. So would you want to guarantee more than market value? Remember what market value is. Market value is what a willing buyer and seller, that's the price they agree on. That's what the house is worth.
Not only that, Craig, but watch this. You can still use the guarantee. So I say to Craig, I say, look, okay, listen, we agree that we're going to market your property at $850,000. But I've told you, looking at the comps, you agree that market range is somewhere around $800,000. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to aggressively market the property at $850,000, but I still stand by my guarantee of $800,000. And here's what I'm going to suggest that no other realtor will. Anything less than $800,000 that we get you for your home, I'll make up the difference out of my commission.
That's true.
We're still going to market at $850,000. It doesn't stop me from making the guarantee at $800,000.
Right. Well, you're guaranteeing what you're guaranteeing in that situation is I am going to get you what I guarantee. We can list it at whatever, but I'm going to guarantee you what I say, or I'm going to pay you the difference.
Exactly.
Versus me guaranteeing the list price. If we can't agree on the list price, let's agree on what the property is worth. In other words, all I can guarantee is to get you what your home is worth.
And what's so critical there is that you ensure they understand that you're offering this because other agents don't. Other agents do not put their money where their mouth is. They don't even make claims, or if they do, the claims are completely empty. So
okay, so I said at the super conference in Toronto that sometimes what the seller would say is, well, Craig, you know, I'm interviewing another agent, and the other agent says, you know, that your guarantee, it's just a scam, it's a low ball offer, and I would say, okay, well, why don't you take my offer for $800,000, take it to this other agent and see if they'll sign it. And of course, they never would. So on one hand, they're saying my offer was a low ball and all this stuff, but on the other hand, the other agent wasn't willing to be accountable. You know, they'll tell the seller a big high price, but when it comes down to, well, if we don't get you that price, the realtor has to pay the difference, well, then it's a different story.
Yeah.
Okay, Ernest from Tampa, I believe, has an audio question, Andrea, so let's go over to him.
Okay, Ernest, your line is now open.
Good morning, Craig and James. How you doing?
Good, Ernest. How are things going in your business?
Pretty good. Things are getting better. We're getting some really, really good leads off postcards. We got a $1 million+ lead last night. We might get an appointment this week with them, and we also got another one in the 700,000 range. So things are definitely turning around. Got a question about lead generation as far as once you get the lead, how do you deal with people that honestly, they seem like they're blowing you off? I'm busy right now, call me later. Or the spouse answers and says, oh, Debbie's not available right now, can I help you? How do you deal with those the best way?
I gotta step in and just make a suggestion here. I'm telling you, this comes solely from the introduction. It is the way that people, their brain automatically goes when they determine that they're talking to a telemarketer. So, this is good. Go into the call thinking they're picking up the phone. As soon as I speak, their brain is going to say telemarketer. So you have to immediately make sure that you dispel any idea that you are a telemarketer. Now, it is my suspicion, but what I bet you're doing is you're pausing in your introduction. Hey, Ernie, it's James calling with Remax Omega Realty. How you doing today? Like, you're done.
Right.
And that is the problem, is that if you haven't differentiated yourself from a telemarketer, people will hang up on you full on. If you immediately differentiate yourself from a telemarketer, it's far less likely that they will do that. And more to the point, it's far more likely that they'll actually greet you with appreciation. Right? It would be like if I called, if I called to set up a doctor's appointment, and the doctor's office called me back because I was meeting with a specialist, and now the doctor's office calls me back, and I pick up the phone, and they say, "Oh, hi, it's such and such doctor's office calling. How you doing today?" Well, if the wrong person answers the phone, I don't know what they might think, but I know this: if I answer the phone and they say, "The reason I'm calling is you called to schedule an appointment," I would treat them with the utmost of appreciation. So we have to have that concept. Remember, they requested information from you. You provided the information. You're simply calling as a courtesy to let them know. That's your mindset. But you've got to get all of that all out right away in your introduction. If you skip it, if you pause, if you say, "How you doing today?" they're gone, because all you are is a telemarketer.
Right. So just get it all out in one sentence. Don't really break it all.
Yeah, you really do. Now, if somebody else says, "Hi, may I speak with Ernie, please?" Who's calling? Well, it's James with Craig Proctor's office returning Ernie's call. Like that, yes, just that's what you're doing.
Right. So just get it out in one.
If you're not speaking to the person that you want to speak to, then yeah, you can be affirmative.
Right.
Ernie requested information from me, but don't say, "Yeah, no, I'm following up." Just talk to the person that you're looking to talk to, and then when you have them on the phone, you have got to go through the entire introduction without skipping a beat, being very clear, very concise, very confident about who you are, why you're calling them. Is that okay? When the prospect says, "Yeah, great," you're going to find this happens way less often. But
sure.
Yeah, think about a telemarketer. Virtually everyone that they talk to says, "I'm in the middle of something right now." You know what it's called? Breathing. anything's more important than talking to a telemarketer.
This is true.
Right? So, right. But guess what? Very few things are more important than selling your home or buying a home.
But you know the problem in real estate, we've been taught to be telemarketers.
Yes.
Right? That's the habit we have to break. Is we have been taught, we've been programmed to be telemarketers. We've been programmed to believe that the people we're calling do not want to talk to us, because that's been our experience in real estate.
Right.
So a big part of it is confidence. So, you know, if you call, and let's say the wife requested the information, and you speak to the husband, and the wife's not available, you can still use the script with the husband.
Right.
Sometimes
Sure.
it's better to get the other spouse. You know, that if you're talking to the husband, you might think, well, Ernest was asking for my wife. She's not in right now. I know we've been discussing our moving plans, but I didn't know she contacted a realtor. You may get more information from speaking to the spouse. Always, always try your best to speak to the person that requested the information. But if you can't, you can talk to the other spouse, and sometimes they'll play ball with you and answer all of the questions in the universal callback script, and sometimes they won't.
Right.
If they won't, they'll say this. They'll say, well, look, I don't know anything about this, Ernest. You're going to have to speak to my wife, to which you'll say, great. What's her cell number or work number? Right? And when you call the wife at work or on her cell number, and she says, how did you get this number? You can say, well, I called your husband and he gave it to me. He said, I need to talk to you.
I'll definitely give it a shot.
All right. Well, let's make it work. Let us know how you're doing with it. But you know, remember, you're not going to book appointments 100% of the time. But that's our goal, is try to convert as many as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Craig and James. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ernest. Okay. The next question or comment, I guess, is from Bertrand. Hi, James and Craig. First of all, thanks a lot for making me realize that I don't understand my business as much as I thought. I have a team of 3 agents. How can I send one of my agents from my team out to a listing appointment with the universal callback script? How would you formulate that sentence? Okay, I'm not quite sure.
In other words, how on earth was I able to use the universal callback script and book an appointment for you to go out on, Craig, or for Lindy Black to go out on? And the answer is easy. We talk about we talk about us, we talk about our team. I never ever say me. I never ever say I. It's very simple. Just replace anything in there that references.
Yeah, the team member that shows up has to handle this properly as well. So if my team member, my outside sales agent, was to show up at your house, James, and say, oh, James, you know, my name is Steve. I work for Craig. I apologize that Craig couldn't be here tonight, so he sent me. That's not going to work. You can't. Your team members cannot be apologizing that you're not going to be there.
But at the same time, you also have to set expectations. You can't say, Craig will see you tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. and then Craig doesn't show up. You can't do that. And it's totally unnecessary. You don't need to say that. You can say, we, us, our buyers, our seller specialist, our area specialist will come and see you.
Yeah, and when they show up, it's very important.
One of our area specialists will be there on tomorrow evening.
Yep, and it's very important that when your agents, your team members show up, that they say, you know, I'm Craig's partner. Okay, I always had them describe themselves as my partner, not you know, lesser than me. Okay, I never wanted the I never wanted.
You know what's funny, Craig? You said this to me one day. You said this to me one day, and it really resonated with me. You said, "Listen, they don't have a problem with this. You do." And I thought that was really interesting. You know, it's the team member showing up at the door. If they haven't wrapped their mind around this, they're the ones that have the problem with it. The seller doesn't have a problem with it. It's you that has the problem with it.
Yeah, and I would explain to my outside sales agents when they started with me, I would say, look, since I'm not going out on the appointments and you folks are, if you can't handle this, you're useless to me. There's no place for you on my team if you can't show up to a buyer appointment, a listing appointment, and handle that objection of where's Craig. If you can't handle that, then there's no future for you to be on my team. because that is your role, to show up to appointments that we've booked. And you're right, you have to book the appointment using the right language. It's never, well, Craig's going to be there. It's going to, we're going to be there. Okay, it's us, it's we, it's not Craig. If I have a team and all I'm doing is promoting Craig, call Craig, it's all about Craig, don't be surprised that, when you don't show up, that it's not well received. So if you have a team, you've got to use the right language. You've got to market your team. And your team members have to understand how to present themselves, or it doesn't work. Okay, John is asking, can you discuss Love Your Home or We'll Buy It Back? Also, where do I find the certificate? Okay, so John, it's just the guaranteed sales program flipped around to benefit buyers. So we've got others asking about USPs for buyers. There's many USPs for buyers. If we go to the ad generator, okay, so let's have a look at the ad generator, and you go under, we want to go under USP ads. Okay, so let's go under buyers. Okay, we've got the cash savings guarantee. So let's have a look at that one. We talked about this one at the super conference. So this is a USP that you could use for buyers. I've got a few of you asking about USPs for buyers. So here's one that you could use. $5,000 savings on your home purchase guaranteed, or I'll pay you whatever it is. Now, don't be enslaved by my numbers. So Andrea, let's say that I sell expensive homes. That might have to be a $20,000 savings. So we just go over here, we change it to $20,000. And of course, the penalty would have to be more than $500 if I own $1 million home. So make that a $5,000 penalty. Okay, so all Andrea has to do is change the field. Now, how about this? If I sell expensive homes, so here's my guarantee to my high-end buyers. I'll negotiate at least $20,000 off any home you purchase using my services, or I pay you $5,000 on closing if I fail to do that. So what would be the worst thing that could happen here? James buys a $2 million home from me, and I only save him $19,000. So I'd have to deduct $5,000 off my commission. Well, what's my commission for selling a $2 million home? Okay, I'm still going to be okay, right? Even if I deduct $5,000. Now, some would say, well, that's not a good idea. You have to deduct $5,000. Yeah, but from business I never would have had I not run the ad. Remember, James was going to use his friend. I caused a total stranger to pick up the phone and call me, or visit my website, or leave a message on my recorded message. Let's have a look at a different USP for buyers. We'll go down the list here. Okay, so buy any one of our listings. If you're not satisfied, we'll sell it for free. Okay, so John, it doesn't have to be a situation where you guarantee to buy it. Okay, buy any one of our listings. If you're not satisfied in 18 months, that could be 12 months, that could be 6 months. I won't even charge you a listing commission. Okay, or let's flip back and look at the one that John's inquiring about, which is I'll buy it. Okay, so buy any one of our listings, and if you're not satisfied within X amount of time, I'll buy it back. Or you could combine those two. I think Rick Brash was offering, buy any home using my services, and if you're not satisfied within 18 months, I'll either sell it for free or I'll buy it back.
Craig, I think something else that's important to bear in mind as well is that a USP you don't have to establish a USP just to advertise it. You can also use it in your presentation as one of the tools in your toolbox. In other words, you could have a guarantee that although you may not advertise it, it's very effective in your presentation.
Well, yeah, the least expensive way and often the most effective way to promote your USPs are by the words that come out of your mouth. So if I'm on the phone with a prospect and I want them to meet with me, I could talk about these USPs. If I'm at your home, James, and you're a buyer, and I'm trying to get you signed to a buyer agency agreement, or you're a seller, and I'm trying to list your home, well, then I probably want to set myself apart from all the other agents you're speaking to. Here's a question from Jana. I started using the online home evaluation postcards that we offer, and I found that some people register and provide very basic information. So do I just call them back and request more information on their property before I do the evaluation? Yeah, look, Jana, the truth is we can't really give anyone an accurate assessment of what their home would sell for without looking at it. So this is exactly the excuse you need to meet with them. So I call James back and I say, hey James, it's Craig with ABC Realty, and I received a request for the evaluation you wanted on your home, and I just wondered if you folks were planning on selling it. Okay, if the answer is no, if James says no, I'm just curious, we've got no plans to sell it all, and I believe him, then I would say, well, look, James, what I'm going to send you is I'm going to send you an email with some recent home sales on your street and some of the homes that are currently listed, because I have no interest in going over to meet with James because I believe him that he's not looking to sell his home. But if I don't believe James, if I think he says he is thinking of selling, then I do want to meet with James, right? So I'm going to say to James, well, look it, rather than give you a ballpark figure on what your home is worth, since you've indicated that you want to sell your home, why don't I drop by and have a closer look at it? That way I can give you a much more accurate assessment, and now we can go right into the seller offer. Let's go to the universal callback script, and let's look at what you're going to say to a seller. Remember, it has to be more than about the price, because a lot of sellers know what their house is worth now, right? So if your big offer to sellers is, oh, James, I can drop by and tell you what you already know, which is what your home is worth, that's a pretty weak offer. So if we have a look at the sell first offer, if you want to highlight that, please, Andrea, in the bottom right-hand corner, this is what I would say to James. You know, I can give you, a free market analysis, determine what your home would sell for. Also, I can give you tips on what to do and what not to do to sell your home for the most amount of money. And we can go over all the various closing costs you'll incur, so you'll know exactly what you'll have left in your pocket after all expenses. It's free of charge, and you're never obligated to do anything. Does that sound like it might be helpful? So the fact that you don't have all their information is a good thing. The fact that we can't give them a super accurate assessment of what their property is worth over the phone is a good thing. Okay, to give them tips on what to do and what not to do to sell their home and for the most amount of money requires you looking at their property. Well, these are all good things. We want to meet them at their house, right? We want to get together with them at their kitchen table so we can go through our listing presentation and hopefully get them signed up. Okay, do we have any more audio questions at this point, Andrea, or should we keep doing chat?
We do. We have several hands raised. Our first, Sandy Casella, your telephone line is open.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, Sandy, you would be a perfect person to talk about the online home evaluation offer because you're using that now on your postcards, right?
Yes, I am.
All right, so how do you handle that when you don't have all the information?
Well, I don't normally worry about how much information I have. I don't really care about that. I just care about get a basic, information out to them. A lot of times sometimes they'll email me back and if I haven't got to them before they get that, they'll email me back and say, my house is this or my house is that. And then I just call them back and I just go through the script.
You see, I think what happens is our members are actually focusing on giving an evaluation versus getting the home listed. In other words,
Right.
If they're not going to meet with you and they're not going to list their home with you, do you really care what their house is worth?
No.
No.
I don't.
All right, so what's on your mind this morning?
I have a question maybe you can help me with in terms of hiring people and when, so I have 2 part-time admins who do different things, but I'm kind of, like I've heard you say before that you were doing like 150 buyer or 150 transactions before you brought on an OSA, and I'm obviously nowhere near that, but feel like I need to do that at this point. So how do I know when is the right time to do that?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't recommend you wait as long as I did. And also remember, I was in my 20s, okay? I wasn't married, no kids, a lot of energy, living at home with my parents. So that's how I was able to do 150 transactions with one admin person, having no life at all. Okay, did I do it? Yes. Would I recommend that lifestyle to other people? Probably not. So the biggest mistake that I made, and most top agents make, what they'll admit to is they waited too long to hire people.
Okay. So if I have admin and I'm working on getting them to do most of the, like the admin stuff, obviously is what I have them for. But if I have them doing that, should I be? Because here's what I'm running into, and maybe you can tell me if this is what I should be doing. So if I'm booking appointments, then if my nights fill up, because obviously I have family obligations, if my nights fill up, then I have to start booking them too far out, which doesn't work. Also, when I go to conferences and stuff, I don't turn off my lead generation, so I'm still generating leads when I'm there, and I'm calling back my leads. Right, and I'm calling back the leads when I'm there. But if I'm gone for 4 days, I have to book that. I have to try and book an appointment for them 5 or 6 days out, and then that's a waste.
Okay, so you have no licensed team members, correct?
No.
All right, so you should get one.
Okay. And
right.
and they
what would hold you back on that? So when you're at the conferences, or you're on vacation, or you're with your family, imagine buyers being signed to contracts and out there looking at homes, and homes being listed.
Right. Okay. And that's my goal. But I feel like maybe I don't have the admin doing all the stuff they should be doing now. So maybe I should work on that before I bring on an OSA. But I think I should probably bring on somebody to help me at least.
Right. So what you're saying is I just got to wait for a better time to do it. Well, guess what? There is no better time.
Right. Okay.
There's going to be no time where everything's working 100%. But again, that's a mistake people make. Is, well, it's not. I'm just going to wait until it gets a little bit better. The admin staff get a little bit better. Look, if you do this correctly, here's what's going to happen. And you've hung around with enough of our successful members now to know this. And by the way, Sandy's in Mississauga. For those of you not in the Toronto area, that's just west of Toronto. You know, with the people you've been hanging out with in this program, that the people that hire the right people at the right time doing the right thing, 2 things happen. They make way more money, and they work less. So
right.
It's safe to say that you're doing pretty much all you can by yourself.
Agreed.
Right. Like, it's never going to get bigger and better and more profitable, and your life is not. You're not going to have more free time doing it this way. So if you kept doing it this way, a year from now, your business would look the same.
Right.
And Todd Walters talked about this at the conference. He said, you remember the part where, I don't know if you were in the room, when he talked about going back to his RE/MAX office and seeing some of the agents that had been at RE/MAX, like even before he was there. And they were there for, 10, 15, 20 years. And the broker was all proud of the fact that some of these agents, they were making $100,000 or $200,000 a year. And they've been doing that every single year for 20 years in a row. And the broker was proud of that. He was saying, well, isn't that great? And Todd's response was, no, that's not great. That's bad. And if you took a look at what these agents were doing, they're doing the same thing, and they're getting the same results.
Okay.
And, I guess some people are okay with that. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to think we would all want to grow. Like, wouldn't we want tomorrow to be better than today?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that answers my question very well. Thank you.
Well, and what we're talking about here, too, are paradigms, because the thing is you already know what you should do.
Yes.
Right? Like, my answer to you today isn't a surprise to you, right?
No, not at all.
Right. So what do we talk about? When we talk about paradigms, is we do things we don't want to do. So in your case, not having enough time with your family, working too hard, being stressed out, trying to be in too many places at the same time. So that's the problem. You're well aware of the problem, and you don't like this problem. So we go back to, we do things we don't like. It gets us results we don't want, and we keep doing it anyway. So part of the program here, and this is constructive for all of you, is we know what we should do, but we still don't do it. Okay, so that's where the coaching really helps. And the other thing that helps too, Sandy, is when I referenced the other agents that you've been exposed to now in the program, it gives a lot of credence, a lot of credibility what I'm saying, because you've met dozens, really hundreds of these people that are doing what you want to do. So this isn't theory, right? This isn't like, well, you know, Craig's got some wild-haired theory, and I mean, maybe he did it in his business, but who the hell knows if that'll work over here in Mississauga. You know now what you need to do. Now, the question is why aren't you doing it? And it comes down to we justify what we do. So here are the thoughts that go through your mind. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. I don't know if my admin staff is ready for that yet. I would be giving up maybe part of the commission, and if I go out and I work with the buyers and sellers myself, I could hog all the commission. I could keep it all to myself, and that's short-term thinking, right?
Right.
Because, yes, if you don't split the commission with everybody and you do it all by yourself, you could continue to work, 70 hours a week, and your business would never get any bigger than you because there's a limit on what you can do. But, yes, you would keep 100% of that amount. Or you could say, I want to have a business that will grow bigger than me. Right now, it'll never grow bigger than you. And you might be okay with that, or you might not be. You might say, look, I would like to have a business that will grow bigger than me, and if it didn't depend on me, how big could my business grow? It could grow pretty big. So that's what we always have to look at paradigms. We have to look at, okay, why do we do the things that we do when it doesn't get us the results that we want, and what holds us back? And paradigms are real. We all have paradigms, right? It's why we do what we do, and a lot of it is just other people's habits.
Yeah, and I guess it's also every time you do, what I find is every time you do something in this program that's out of your comfort zone, you get comfortable with it. So then you're okay with it. So it's just knowing, because I've never done that before. I don't come from a business background, knowing when it's time to do that stuff. So does that make sense?
Well, that's part of my job, is to make you always uncomfortable. Right? We keep challenging you.
Yeah.
And we give you models. We say, okay, Sandy, here's the results of you doing it this way. Okay, now I want you to meet this person here. And they're doing a little bit differently than you, and here's the results that you're getting. And you take a look at their results. You go, boy, I'd like to get their results. They're making more money, and they're doing it in less time. And then we introduce you to another person and another. Well, it's not too long until you start thinking, well, maybe I should do that.
Right. Okay. And that's, yeah. And I've talked to a couple of people here and kind of run some of the stuff by them, and they've obviously basically said the same thing you've said. That's
right. Okay. So what we're talking about here, it's a mental move.
Right. Okay.
You already know everything you know to do it. We've given you that. This is a mental move.
Yeah.
This is where Sandy draws that sign, that line in the sand, that mental line in the sand. You say, okay, I'm not prepared to keep doing it this way anymore. I'm going to do it a different way.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So we'll stay tuned. Let us know how you're making out with that.
Perfect.
But
Thank you.
I know you're on the cusp of really breaking through on this.
Yeah, that's the goal. So if I keep coming on these things and listening to you guys, it will happen.
Yeah. You know what? Look, you've been programmed for years. How many years have you been in real estate?
25.
Okay. You've been programmed for 25 years that the way it's supposed to work is it's all up to you, and you give your life up to this thing, and you work days and nights, and that's what you've been like. So changing the program is not going to happen overnight.
Right, and it doesn't work that way. 25 years, 24 years of doing it the wrong way prove that. So
Great.
that's why I got
Now,
into this program.
okay, so you did it 24 years before you met me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to guess, and I don't know whether this is true, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say for 24 years you did it the same way and you pretty much got the same response. But the biggest win you've ever got has been since you've met me in the last year.
Without a doubt.
Right? And we're telling you to do it in totally different ways, right? So you've got to look at that and say, I did it for 24 years and the result I got was X. And now I've been following Craig for 12 months and the result I've got is 2 or 3X.
Yeah.
So keep going down that road.
Okay, perfect. I will do that. Thank you.
All right, Sandy, good stuff. Let's take our next audio question.
Our next audio question comes from Maria Galitos. Your line is now open.
Hi, Craig.
Good morning.
So I'm sorry, I'm still trying to understand the guarantee that you're giving 100% of asking price. And so let's say you're saying that, you know, if they go $1,000 less, then how can you advertise that I'll pay you the difference? I'm still just trying to.
Okay, so let's start with the basics here. Where are you located?
In Houston.
You're in Houston, okay. So I don't know what the market's like in Houston, but where I'm from here in Toronto, if a house is priced accurately, it will sell for 100% or more of the asking price.
I'm here.
So in a market like mine, this offer makes sense because I know it's a promise I can not only make, but I can keep it. So what's going on with the market in Houston?
It's the same as there.
It's the same, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
If it's a good house and it's priced right, it'll sell even above asking price.
Okay, so what you're guaranteeing the seller is that unlike the other agents they've met, you're saying, look, when I give you a list price, I'm going to get you that list price or more, or there's going to be a penalty. If I fail to do that, okay, I am going to contribute the difference, okay, up until a maximum amount of X, and you decide the X.
Okay, so if it's 800,000 and we get an offer, so you're saying that I should not, they should not take an offer for less than, let's say, 800,000?
I'm saying we're going to work that offer. That's the condition. We're going to work the offer back and forth as much as we can. And when we can't get the buyer up anymore, so let's say the house is worth, we list the house at 800,000, and we can only get the buyer to 795.
Yeah.
Then I would be willing to deduct my fee by $5,000 to make the seller whole.
Yeah.
But in Toronto, for example, if I list a home at 800,000 and it's really worth 800,000, let me tell you what happens. Multiple offers, 4 or 5 offers at least, and some of the offers come in well over the asking price. So if I'm in that kind of market, I have nothing to fear.
Yeah.
If a home really was worth 800,000, you know, forget list price, but it actually was worth 800,000, and you listed it at 800,000, what would happen immediately?
Multiple offers.
For over the asking price.
Yeah.
Okay, then you're safe.
Okay.
Right? That's how it works.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, whether you made this guarantee or not, you're saying if you listed a home at 800,000, it was really worth 800,000, that's going to happen anyway. So you're basically what you're guaranteeing here is something that's going to happen anyway. In Toronto, if I list a house accurately, it's going to get multiple offers and it's going to sell for way over the asking price. So I'm not fearful of guaranteeing what I know is going to happen anyway.
So we're guaranteeing the market value. I mean,
well, I'm saying to the seller it should be one and the same.
Right.
Right.
So
if your house is worth 800, I'm going to guarantee that we get 800,000 for it. It doesn't matter what it's listed at.
Right. So I'm guaranteeing a certain price, you
Correct.
know, that I think So I have control of that.
Right. Now, let's say that I'm the seller and I say to you, okay, I appreciate that your opinion is 800,000, but I want 900,000 for mine. Now what? Are you going to guarantee me 900,000?
No.
No, because the house is worth 800. So you might say, well, Craig, I could, do it the traditional way. We could overprice your house and list it at 899. But to get the guarantee, I'm going to base it on what the house is really worth.
Yeah.
Isn't this the same conversation we have with every seller? We tell them what the house is really worth, and then they have a price that's higher. I'm just suggesting that this gives you more leverage than without the program, right? Because the seller wants the guarantee more than you want to give it.
Yeah.
And that's the way you got the seller in the first place. That's why you're sitting in the seller's home at their kitchen table, because had you not run this program, they wouldn't have called you because they know somebody in real estate. So even if you were to meet with them and they didn't agree to the program, it's not like you've lost anything because they wouldn't have called you in the first place.
Yeah, of course. That's the reason that I would run this kind of advertising.
Right. So many realtors come to me and they say, Craig, I'm really good when I get in front of a buyer or seller. My problem is that I don't have enough of those opportunities. So I say, okay, well, let me show you, ads that you can run, messages that you can communicate that will get you more at bats. Right? If it's true that you're a great batter and you can hit the ball out of the park, then we just need to get you up to bat more often. And with this example, what you're saying is, well, that's what happens anyway in Houston. If the house is priced right, immediately we're going to get multiple offers and it's going to sell for over the asking price. So there's nothing really to fear here. You're guaranteeing what you know is already going to happen. Make sense?
So if somebody, let's say, comes in for like $10,000, $20,000 less, and the seller wants to take it.
Well, remember, you've already established the maximum that you'll contribute is $5,000. Or whatever maximum you're not going to, the maximum would be your full commission, but I wouldn't probably go that far. So if my maximum, let's say that the most we could work the buyer up was within $20,000 of the asking price, I'm willing to contribute $5,000.
Right.
Here's the great thing about this. It's your program. You decide. You're the one that sets the rules. So your program can look exactly like you want your program to look. So I would just take a look at your marketplace and say, here's the key. It's not only what is the biggest promise, most attractive promise you can make, but also that you can keep. You want the biggest, most exciting promise you can both make and keep.
Right.
Because we don't want to work for nothing.
Of course.
And here's what we know. We go back to this again. You won't have to worry about this in most cases because the truth is, in Houston, if a house is listed accurately, it's going to sell for over the asking price. So if that's true in your market, then you don't have to worry about all these other things. See, a lot of times we worry about stuff we don't have to worry about. Now, if I'm in a slow market, then this would be a dumb program to offer. Right?
Right.
If I'm in a market where, if I list a house accurately, it still doesn't sell or it takes forever to sell and the seller is forced to drop their price, then how about this? I might go with a different USP, maybe days on the market. See, in Houston right now, or in Toronto and a lot of marketplaces, if I ran a USP that said, your Houston home sold in 120 days or less, or I'll buy it, sellers in Houston would probably laugh at that. So, well, that's not helpful. 120 days, all the homes in Houston sell in less than 120 days. That would be a meaningless guarantee, right?
Yeah.
So we have to look at the marketplace, what's going on, and then we've got to pick our unique selling proposition in accordance to what's going on. But in a real slow market, if I'm out in the Midwest and it takes months and months and months to sell homes and a lot of them aren't selling, that might be a very good guarantee. Your home sold in X amount of time, or I'll buy it, or I'll pay you $1,000 cash. Anyway, we better move on. I hope that was helpful. Let's go back to Andrea and Sue's next.
Our next guest is Mario Daniel Sconza. Your line is now open.
Mario, how are you doing?
Amazingly well, Craig. How are you?
Good. You're using your middle name now.
Yeah, I'm using both names, Mario Daniel, but you can call me Mario or you can call me Colette. How's that?
All right. All right, so what's on your mind today, Mario?
First of all, thank you for everything. A few quick questions. Change of pace a little bit on the first question is, I'd like to understand, when you were an agent, Craig, what was your narrow focus? I want to understand your thinking. Your narrow focus, was your narrow focus selling 600 homes a year? Was your narrow focus, okay, team, let's go out and the goal this month is 50 deals, or the goal this month is $200,000, or the goal this day is an appointment? What was your narrow focus?
Well, I would say it was just do the best I can. And if I sold 600 homes, I was trying to sell 700 homes.
So the narrow focus was do the best you can.
Okay. Well, look, when I started doing this, and I was selling 200 homes a year, and then 300 homes a year, and then 400 homes. No one in the Greater Toronto area was doing that. Remember, I started doing this like multiple hundreds of homes back in the early 1990s, as you know, being in this market. So I had no one else to compare myself to. My competition was in the mirror. And you've got to understand that my goal was never initially to sell 500 or 600 homes a year, because initially I wouldn't have even believed that was possible. So, that was my goal, is just I'm going to try to fine-tune this and do the best I possibly can. And, I got this up to 500 to 600 transactions, and I couldn't figure out how to do better than that. And you might be thinking, well, gee, that's a terrible problem to have, Craig, but I believe being stuck at any level is bad. And I didn't like being stuck, but that's where I got stuck. I couldn't push this thing past 500 or 600 transactions, but, I'm in a small town. There's only a certain population in Newmarket and Aurora. Perhaps if I was in a bigger marketplace, it would have been different, but that was my mindset, is how can I make it bigger and better?
Bigger and better. So the CANI theory, continuous and never-ending improvement. I appreciate that. And,
yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey you're on. Shouldn't we all want to get better?
Absolutely.
I don't think there's many of us that wake up in the morning and we think, I want to do a worse job than I did yesterday.
No. So just
right? That's human nature. Human nature is we want to grow and become bigger and make it, do it better and faster, and that was my mindset, still is today.
So it's really from what I hear you saying, Craig, is you never really had a specific number in your head. Your goal is just to be the best you can be, and that was your goal. Just do your best.
Yeah, look, if I was doing 30 homes a month, I wanted to do 40. When I was doing 40, I wanted to do 50 transactions a month. And that's why my team would make fun of me. They'd say, it doesn't matter, Craig's never satisfied, which I guess is true. So I always had sort of this dissatisfaction. Wherever I was just on the pathway to making it better.
I appreciate that. The upcoming conference, the Platinum Conference, I want to bring a new team member to that conference, and I'm just wondering, is there going to be, as it was here in Toronto, a super conference with a platinum breakout, or is that specifically?
No. This is for the Rainmakers. In Toronto, we had Rainmakers team leaders there, but it was mostly training for your outside sales agents, your inside sales agents. The Anaheim event, the Platinum event in Anaheim, is going to be for you, the Rainmaker.
Understood. And with respect to advertising, Craig, I know that Facebook and, for instance, Google Success Website handles that. Is there an outside company that we should be leveraging to handle Kijiji advertisements?
Well, look, I always encourage you guys to be self-sufficient when it comes to lead generation. I believe too many of our members abdicate responsibility rather than delegate it. By abdicate responsibility, what I mean by that is the member really never learns how to generate the leads themselves. You know, they get Success Website to do it, or Bold Leads, or Commission Inc. They end up buying their leads from someone, which is great. I mean, there's an argument for that. And I believe the argument for buying leads or having someone else doing it is after you've exhausted your own capabilities, right? So I'll say to some of our members, you know, why is it that you buy Bold Leads? And they've got a good answer. They'll say, well, look, I'm generating all the leads I can, and I still want more leads. So, you know, I'm also buying leads from other places as well. And the return on investment is far greater than what I spend. So it's hard to argue with that.
I understand.
All right, Mario, we better move on here. We've got a few more questions. Thanks for being part of the program. Let's go over to Andrea and see who's next.
Our next question comes from John Brackett. Your line is open. John?
Yes, hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hey, John. Yep,
yeah, can you
loud
hear
and
me?
clear.
Okay, great, appreciate that. Craig, my question is about making the right offer when you're presenting to a client. So I have a couple listing presentations this week. Last week I got off the phone with James McDonald and he talked about making the right offer. Typically when I'm out on these meetings now, the seller is also buying a property. And so I was the one who was asking about the buy it or, you know, love it or I'll buy it back, that certificate and the terms of that. Because I want to make sure that when I get in front of the sellers this time, I'm sure I'm doing the seller presentation, but I'm also making
sure. Okay, well,
sure...
let's make sure that you are doing the right presentation.
Okay.
Okay, so if we pull up the universal callback script, Andrea, you'll see one of the key questions there is you're asking the prospect whether they want to buy first or sell first. Okay, so if we go down the seller side, you can see question number 5. I would say, John, would you prefer to buy before listing your home, or do you want to sell your home first? We're asking that question for good reason, because I want to know where your head's at. I mean, it is true that we could meet with a seller prospect could respond to a seller campaign, or we think they're a seller, but when we ask them whether they want to buy first or sell first, they say, well, actually, I'd rather look around and buy first before I get too excited about selling my home. So now that you know that it's a buy first prospect, you're actually out there, you should be communicating the buyer offer, and you should be going to that home with the mindset of doing a buyer presentation, not a listing presentation.
Right, okay.
See, and here's a mistake a lot of realtors made. I made this mistake. Just because the prospect responded to a seller campaign, I automatically assume, well, it's a sell first guy. Well, then I started asking the question, do you want to buy first or sell first? A lot of these, what I thought were seller prospects, said I'd rather actually look around first. So even though I might have made a fantastic offer for a CMA, my seller offer might have been fantastic, that offer, as good as it was, fell on deaf ears because that's not where the seller's head was at. They wanted to buy first.
Yeah, I made that mistake last week.
Right. So what happened is you met with the seller, and all you were talking about is listing and what we do for sellers, and you might have done a great job, but then you realized, holy cow, that great offer I made, although it might have been a great offer, it fell on deaf ears because that's not where their head was at. They wanted to buy first. So during that whole meeting, had you been talking about what's important to them rather than guessing, you probably would have had a buyer agency agreement signed and maybe the listing agreement signed.
Right. Now, Craig,
for years, I made that mistake. I would guess. Well, it's the guy responded to a seller campaign, so I guess I should try to pitch him on a listing presentation. If you don't ask, you don't know what offer to make. You end up guessing.
Sure. Now, when you're opening up your presentations, when you open the presentation up with a prospect and you're meeting with them, are there questions you ask to reiterate, to have them reiterate to you what's important so that you can transition into the right presentation, or at least you're making sure you're focusing on the right presentation? I know you talked about this about a month and a half ago, but I thought I'd ask the question again.
Right. So a great place to start, if you were my seller or a buyer, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say, so John, you know, you're interviewing agents. What's most important to you? And they will tell you. And then you can just feed that back to them. And at the end of the presentation, they go, oh my God, John, you sound like the perfect agent for us.
Right. Okay. And so lastly,
too many realtors forget about the simplicity of that. They talk about what they think is important to the seller or buyer, but if you ask them, they'll actually tell you how to sell them. What if the seller said to you, well, what's most important is we're not in a rush, John, it's just getting the most amount of money. Then you'd be talking about how to get them the most amount of money. You wouldn't be necessarily talking about how to sell their home quickly. What if the opposite was true? Hey, you know, we're in a real hurry. We've been transferred. It's a divorce or whatever. So what's most important to us is, you know, like getting this sold as quick as possible.
Right.
And you'd be focusing on how in your presentation you'd be talking about how you're going to sell their home faster than anyone else.
Correct. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And then lastly, Craig, as a follow-up to the first question, is I'm wanting to offer now a stronger USP I've been using for buyers, that is. I've been using the cash savings certificates online and incorporating that into my proposal, but I want to now use the, you know, love your home or I'll buy it back. And I'm not able to find the terms or the guidelines, I think you call it.
It's just the guaranteed sale program flipped around for buyers. So all you have to do is look at the rules for the guaranteed sale program. So they've got to move up. They have to buy one of your listings. There's going to be a minimum amount of market time where you're going to market their home. If you can't get a higher offer from an outside buyer, let's say within 120 days, then you would step in.
You know, you've said that to me before, and for whatever reason now when you said it's literally the reverse, it makes total sense. So I understand that now.
Okay, so let's go do it.
Got it. Let's do it.
You know, that's what I said to Sandy a minute ago, and you're admitting to this. You're saying, I've heard this before, but I'm not doing it. Right? And this is human nature. That's why I talk about paradigms. Let me repeat it again. Right now, for those of you that are new with the program, okay, you came to me because you said, I want to improve. I want to change. And I said at the super conference, how many of you really want to change? Everybody puts their hands up. I said, okay, well, if you want to change, it means you can't keep doing what you're doing. Now, the problem is the old paradigm doesn't like that. We don't like change, right? We have a routine, and the routine that you have is responsible for the results that you get. So you want to change the results, means we've got to change the routine. So what you find yourself doing is defending what you're currently doing, even though you really don't want it anymore. I know it sounds crazy, but there's a bit of psychology in this. And this is what we help you with. In the coaching program, eventually all of you are going to get every one of your questions answered. But just because you know how to do it, and just because all your questions have been answered, doesn't mean you're going to do it. Okay, that's why I said when I ended the super conference, I said there's a big difference between what we know and what we do. So our job is to get you to do what you eventually will all know how to do. James McDonald, anything you want to say before we wrap this up today?
You know, it's amazing how the guarantees it can really take over the system. You know, everyone talks about the guarantees. I don't know how many questions we had today that revolved around one of the performance guarantees. And it is really, really important that you establish a guarantee that sets you apart. But don't lose sight. The best ways to generate the leads in the first place are a lot of the non-branded direct response ads. How you get a prospect to raise their hand, it varies, but the best way to do that to begin with is with a lot of the less branded stuff, offering information in an easy and non-threatening way. Then you have these performance guarantees to set yourself apart so that when you're face-to-face, there is a reason why someone would choose you. So you need to kind of compartmentalize this. We don't want you to have the impression that the way that you're going to generate leads is by focusing primarily or exclusively on offering guarantees of different kinds. There are much better ways in the beginning to generate the leads, and it's a mix of everything. So bear that in mind. Now, don't forget, on Thursday is our role-playing session, and then on Friday, we're going to even further detail the lead generation system. And as you'll see, it's weighted far more heavily towards the less branded offering information to generate leads than it is on offering USPs or branded type advertising. So bear that in mind, everybody. And that was something that really struck me today, listening to all the questions about the different guarantees.
Craig. Yeah, it did. So our helpline, although we want you to ask questions about many aspects of your business, whether it be lead generation or conversion or difficulty with recruiting, hiring, training, trouble with your broker, any part of your business. It's interesting how the entire helpline call sort of evolved around the guarantees and your confusion. I didn't get to even half the questions. Look, none of you are really going to get the guarantees immediately, nor do we want you to fixate on this, okay? We are going to spend an entire year together. For those of you that are new with us, every Friday on our ad clinic, including this Friday, we're going to give you more clarification on how it all works. So don't think that you should know how it all works. Nobody comes into this understanding it all. It's a process. I'm going to end today's helpline with a quote that Sherry has given me. And Sherry has typed into the chat box. She says, Craig, Dan Kennedy has a quote in his book that I think is helpful. It goes like this: eliminate the time between the idea and the action. A tip I need to integrate into my behavior. So we'll wrap it up on that note.
Well, Craig, before we wrap it up, one thing I'd like to mention quickly, and it goes along the lines of all the questions, is we have two training sessions that you're doing this week on USPs and performance guarantees. So a lot of these questions will be answered this week. Tomorrow we have performance guarantees for some of our seasoned members, and then Wednesday we have session 2 for our newest group, which is selecting your target market and your USP. So I wanted to mention those briefly.
Thank you for reminding me that. Yes, of course. Session number 2, for those of you that started the coaching program at the Toronto conference a week or so ago. Our second coaching session is this week on Wednesday. Is that what time is that?
It's on your screen just so everybody can see it, but it's at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, Wednesday, September 2nd. Okay,
so what I'm discussing is how to select your target market and your unique selling proposition. So, today there was a lot of questions about the unique selling propositions and the guarantees and how they work, but consider this. Before you run out and you decide, okay, this is going to be the offer that I make, what's more important to do, or what should happen before you decide on the message, is doesn't it make sense you should decide on who you're talking to and who you should not be talking to? How could you decide on the appropriate message if you're not even sure who you should be talking to? So that's what we're going to talk about this Wednesday at 2 p.m. is who should you be talking to? Who should you not be talking to? What piece of the market will be the most productive for you? Once we understand that piece of the market, the who, then we can think about what the most appropriate message should be. Okay, so yes, there's going to be lots of information on the guarantees and the USPs, and everything we present you in this program is in a specific order for good reason. Okay, so we've been doing this a long time. there's an order to how we dole this out to you, okay? The order in implementation and understanding, and we have lots of sessions for you just this week. If you're new to the program and you just started the Super Conference in Toronto, you've got the helpline that we just did here today. On Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time is session number 2. On Thursday, it's the role play conversion call, 11 a.m. on Thursday, and then Friday is our ad clinic where we actually look at the ads and get into a lot of what we talked about today in more detail. So that wraps it up for today. I want to thank James McDonald and Andrea, as always, for doing a great job. And we'll talk to all of you later on this week on our respective webinars. Take care. That's it for today.